Welcome! Today we're counting down our picks for the best drag racing games that you should check out. And without further ado, let's dive right in. NHRA Drag Racing 2. Now, before I say anything about this game, let me tell you that drag racing is a very small niche in the racing game genre, so there aren't a lot of dedicated drag racing games. So, prepare to see many mediocre or half-assed games on this list, or even mainstream racing games with some drag racing elements in them. Anyway, this game was one of the most legendary dedicated drag racing games back in the 2000s. Some of you young guys may refuse to play this game because of its outdated visuals, but believe me, this is drag racing gamified. NHRA Championship Drag Racing. Speed for all. Unlike the previously mentioned game, this modern title hasn't been well received yet. The game isn't terrible, but it doesn't quite live up to the NHRA name. On the bright side, the graphics are solid, and the tuning system takes some time to master, which can be satisfying. However, when it comes to tuning and getting down the lane, there are actually free-to-play mobile drag racing games that do it better. So if you're looking for a top-notch drag racing experience, this might not hit the mark, but it's still decent if you're a fan of the genre. IHRA Professional Drag Racing 2005. This is a drag racing game that aims to capture the niche of the sport by focusing on buying, modifying, and racing dragsters. And in terms of gameplay, the main activities during a race involve revving up the engine to warm the tires, positioning the car at the starting line, and hitting the gas when the light turns green. But unfortunately, that's the bulk of the game, and as you might guess, it gets old quickly. However, if you're a die-hard fan of this particular genre, I say it's worth checking it out. EV3 Drag Racing. This game stands out as one of the best free-to-play drag racing games available, despite its learning curve. The game requires some patience and a bit of knowledge about drag racing, but it's incredibly rewarding once you get the hang of it. And while the game doesn't spoon-feed you strategies or tips, there's a strong community ready to help beginners, tapping into resources like YouTube videos, joining Facebook groups, and asking for advice from more experienced players can really enhance your experience. Overall, this one is mostly aimed at people who want to invest some time into it. Street Outlaws 2. Winner takes all. If you go into this game with the right expectations, it's fantastic. Now, is it the best racing game out there? Probably not. Is it the best drag racing game? Of course, the answer is no, but if you're a fan of the show and enjoy the thrill of hustling, gambling, and tuning your car, this game is definitely for you. And compared to the first game, which required you to participate in various racing modes, this game focuses purely on drag racing. That streamlined approach makes it much more enjoyable if drag racing is what you're after. Need for Speed Payback. Now, just like many Need for Speed games before it, this one is a street racing game first and foremost, with some illegal street drag racing elements sprinkled into it. Think of Need for Speed Underground games but with modern graphics. But unlike the Underground games, you can do a wheelie at the start of drag races if your car is powerful enough. Not saying you should though, since doing a wheelie isn't ideal in a drag race. Anyway, if you care about a game's graphics and not so much about its gameplay, try this one. Juiced. This one was from the same era as the Underground games, and although many people prefer the Underground games, this one had its own fan base for a few reasons. And what made the game quite popular among some gamers is that it was one of the first to implement the pink slip system, which makes the game more exciting as you can lose your car if you lose a race. And despite many people saying that this one is a cheap underground ripoff, I think it has its own charms that made it likable to those in the know. Need for Speed. This one is a standout in the series, especially before the franchise took a turn towards heavy microtransactions, and the visuals still hold up incredibly well even now with the always wet roads that look cool somehow. The car customization is also top-notch, though it's a bit frustrating that some parts only unlock after you've made significant progress in the campaign. It's not a deal-breaker, but it does limit your early game options. Moreover, the Hot Rods update also brings some cars, a manual transmission option, and 5 drag racing events. So, give this one a try if you love the franchise. The Crew 2. I was surprised when I found out that this arcade racing game has some drag race events, although they aren't proper drag races. Still, if you love this game and want to do some casual and simple drag races, this could be it. And I also mentioned earlier that not all the games on this list are dedicated drag racing games, and this is one example. However, if you're not a drag racing enthusiast, I think this game could satisfy your need for high-speed driving in a straight line. Need for Speed ProStreet. This one is one of the most famous Need for Speed games when it comes to drag racing. In this game, each race begins with a mini-game to heat up your tires, which sets the stage for the actual drag race. And once you're on the line, it's all about mastering your shifts, using NOS strategically, and keeping your car in a straight line. And the only downside is that drag racing becomes too easy once you fully upgrade a Supra or the old Charger. However, you don't want to miss this one if you love drag racing. Car Mechanic Simulator 2021 with Drag Racing DLC. As the title suggests, this one isn't actually a racing game but a mechanic simulator game where you fix, modify, and upgrade various cars with thousands of car parts. And if you get the Drag Racing DLC, you can work on dragsters and test them out on a drag strip using manual transmission. Additionally, with this DLC, you can earn money by winning championship races and placing bets. In short, this one is one of the most unique games on this list. And you can try the demo first if you're still not sure. Bounty, Drag Racing. This game really surprised me with how engaging drag racing can be. If you're into the tuning aspect of drag racing, this game nails it perfectly. In this game, most of your time will be spent fine-tuning and setting up your car, making it a significant part of the experience when you finally hit the track. And when you fire up the engine and get into the race, it really feels like you're gearing up for something epic. Overall, this new indie game is much better than other popular games on this list when it comes to drag racing simulation. Need for Speed Unbound. With this one, don't expect a realistic drag racing simulation where you spend hours tuning your car and then race it for a few seconds on a drag strip. Instead, EA is doing something different by giving the visuals a cartoony style with added comical effects. Some people like it while others don't, and I personally don't mind since you can turn off these effects with a mod. Anyway, if you like street racing games with street drag races that are very arcade-like, this one will do. Grid Autosport with Drag Pack DLC. This title isn't actually a drag racing game, nor is it a racing game with a drag racing mode. It's actually your typical AAA circuit racing game. But with the Drag Pack DLC, you can turn this game into a surprisingly decent drag racing simulation, albeit not a proper one. And as you can see, the graphics are stunning, and the cars actually feel like they're about to break the sound barrier. And since it's not available to buy on Steam anymore, I suggest finding other ways to get it. If you know, you know. Night Runners Prologue. Now, this one is also a newly released free-to-play indie game that takes you deep into the underground scene of Japanese street racing set between 1990 and 2009. In this hidden gem, you'll join local street racing crews and fight for control over territories and establish dominance. And just like many street racing games, you'll engage in high-stakes wager races, face off against rival crews, and customize your vehicles with an impressive range of options. And as you can see, the drag racing in this game is very similar to the beloved Underground games. So, what are you waiting for? Need for Speed Underground. This game is what made illegal street drag racing famous in video games, particularly due to its unique mechanic where you must change lanes and avoid collisions with regular civilian cars. And as expected, nothing is realistic in this game, but you know what? We didn't care back then. All we knew was that this game was very addictive and could satisfy our desires to relive those fast and furious moments. And obviously, if you're a drag racing enthusiast or are obsessed with realistic vehicle simulation, don't bother with this one. But honestly, everyone should try this one. Need for Speed Underground 2. Now, this one is the sequel to the previous game, and honestly, I played this one more than the first. I mean, the soundtracks are just awesome, especially when you're in the garage modifying and customizing your cars. Damn, it's so nostalgic. Anyway, just like in the previous game, you're required to change lanes during drag races if you don't want to crash. And you know what? You can also play dirty by slamming your opponents into crashes, and that's how I win. And one more thing, don't forget to use the 240 Essex if you want the best results. Need for Speed Most Wanted. This game is basically like the Underground series, but now with cops chasing you during the daytime. So yeah, now you must constantly stay alert, as you'll face penalties if you're chased by the cops. And in this game, you can also use Speed Breaker, a skill introduced here that lets you enter a slow motion state, allowing you to turn at excessive angles and speeds to navigate the road better. And you can also use it during drag races, just so you know. It's unrealistic, I know, but it's a really fun feature, to be honest. Shift 2 Unleashed. This one focuses more on a simulation style and is less arcade-like than other popular Need for Speed games. And unlike the other games, this one does not have a story, so keep that in mind. And although the Shift series focuses more on the simulation aspect of racing, it's still a Need for Speed game in the end. So don't expect anything hardcore with this one. But hey, we don't have to choose between arcade or simulation games. We can enjoy both, and this game offers a great combination of both approaches. Assetto Corsa with mods. If you've been watching my other videos, you may be familiar with this title. This game is so moddable that it can almost become any kind of racing game you wish, provided there's a mod for it. Seriously, it's like the devs didn't just make a racing game, but rather a racing game engine that can be used to create various racing experiences. And since many dedicated drag racing games aren't that good, this could be a solid alternative. So if you're familiar with modding games, you should try drag racing in this one. BeamNG.drive with mods. Just like Assetto Corsa, this one is also highly moddable, making it a great game for virtual racers who want a realistic drag racing simulation. And with mods come countless vehicles, parts, and modes, which is a good thing if you love tweaking your dragsters, especially if you have too much free time. However, since this title is a soft body physics vehicle simulator first and foremost, you might not get much of a racing feel from it. But if you care more about vehicle physics, then BeamNG is the answer. Forza Motorsport 7. There's a mode that was released after the game's launch called Experimental Drag, where you can compete in drag racing. And it's not proper drag racing, of course, but hey, it's Forza, so it's good enough for most people. And as I mentioned before, most of the games in this list are either subpar dedicated drag racing games or AAA titles with some drag racing elements, and this one falls into the latter. Oh, and since this game is now delisted, I guess you'll have to resort to the forbidden method to get it, but don't ask me how. Gran Turismo 7. This game isn't a dedicated drag racing game, obviously, but there are some mission challenges where you must complete various driving tasks, some of which involve drag racing. And some of you might reject the idea of drag racing in a Gran Turismo game, but Gran Turismo fans are usually quite dedicated and adapt to whatever the game offers, so there you go. Now, is it worth getting this game just for these drag challenges? Obviously not. But if you already own the game, I just wanted to let you know that there are drag races included. Forza Horizon 5. This game isn't known for its drag racing, but hey, it's one of the most popular racing games today, and a few months ago, they released a drag racing update, so it might interest you if you already own the game. And one of the coolest things about this update is the addition of the Chevrolet Pro stock Camaro, which you can see in the video. And although it might not be a dedicated drag racing game, nor is it a racing game equipped with a great drag racing update, Forza is Forza, and Forza is fun. Grand Theft Auto 5. Here we go again with GTA 5, and I bet some of you might think I'm trolling. Maybe I am, or maybe I'm not. Anyway, Rockstar released a drag race event earlier this year, and if you missed it, you can always resort to role-playing to race with others unofficially, or even install a mod called Drag Meets, which adds a casual drag racing mode to the game. But seriously, this game is like the BeamNG of AAA games. Or maybe like Skyrim, for those of you who are old. So do you agree with our picks? Check out these other videos from us and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.